Hey guys, today we are going to be talking about the last section in chapter 8 for us, which is section 8.6. This is the law of sines and cosines. Now, normally when we talk about trig, that comes with a right triangle. We do trig, we do right triangles, they just kind of go together. Not in these cases. With law of sine and cosines, we are now talking about using trig functions in triangles specifically that are not right triangles. These are going to be acute and obtuse triangles. Now, the way we solve them, we're going to start with law of sines first. With law of sines, you have a triangle ABC, and remember that the sides are named for the angle they are opposite of. So side A is across from angle A, so on and so forth. So law of sines is fundamentally a proportion. Sine of A over side B. Sine of A over side A. Sine of B over side B. Sine of C over side C. It's fundamentally a proportion. What you're going to have is you're going to have 3 of these pieces of information, and you're looking for the fourth. So an example problem could be something like sine of, I'm making up numbers here, 20 over A is equal to sine of 70 over 15. Okay, making up numbers. But what you're going to have to do in order to solve for A is to cross multiply and get everything on one side of the equation and then get A all by itself. We'll go into these in a second. But first, we need to talk about how you can tell. So, because law of sines is fundamentally a proportion, you need 3 pieces. You need an angle, the side across from it, and then either another angle or another side. So in my made-up problem I gave you another angle. Okay, so you need a pair, a side and its angle, and then one other piece of information. The other way you can look at this is you either need angle, angle, side, or you need angle, side, angle. Okay, if you have either of these 2 combinations, you can use law of sines. So let's go for it. All right, so now in this first one, okay, we're going to find x, we're going to round to the nearest 10th. So first off, I'm checking, do I have the information? Okay, well, I have angle A and I have side A. Next, I have angle C and side C, or well, I'm looking for side C. So that works. I have an angle A and its side. So I have the sine of 97 over 16, an angle and its side is equal to, go again, the sine of 21 over x. Another angle and its side. And you can flip these. You could be given the sides and be looking for the angles, but right now this is the problem we have. The important thing is to remember you need that pair of information. If you don't have that pair of information, then you're stuck. All right, so let's solve. So we are going to cross multiply. So now I have 16 sine of 21 is equal to the sine of 97x. I'm going to divide sine of 97 away from both sides. That way it cancels over here. And now I have 16 sine of 21 over sine of 97. This is calculator ready. Okay? This is what you put in the calculator. If you don't get it all the way to here, then you're going to have some issues. I also advise leave sine, as weird as it looks, leave sine in the equation until you get to calculator ready mode. It makes just putting things in the calculator a lot simpler, and then you're not messing around with decimals. And the answer for this is 5.77 equals x, but it said to round, so I'm going to go 5.8. And that equals x. Now, as you put things in the calculator, if you don't have one of the nice calculators that gives you a fraction bar, make sure you're using parentheses around your numerator and your denominator. That way you don't have a calculator error. All right, let's go on to the next one. I think I have officially run out of room. So I'm going to erase this work right here. And that way I have room on this problem. But if you need that information, you can always go back. Okay, here we go again. So I need a pair of information. As I look at this problem, I see this 10. It is all by itself. This is the side length. In order to use law of sines, I need the angle that it's across from, which is currently not there. So I need that angle K. I have side K. I need that angle K. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to just add up those two angles and subtract from 180. And that's how you find the angles that you need. So add them up, subtract from 180. Yes, I'm using a calculator. So we have 62. This is now our angle K. So there's my pair of information. I have angle K, so sine of 62 over 10 is equal to, and now I have sine of 45 over x. So my pair, side, angle, and then on the other side, the angle that I'm given and the side I'm looking for. If you want to pause the video now and see if you can cross multiply on your own, go for it. If not, here we go. So it's going to be 10 sine of 45 is equal to x sine of 62. Once you're here, I need to get a sine of 62 away from x. So I'm going to divide, and I have sine of 62 on both sides. That's going to cancel, and now I'm left with 10 times the sine of 45 over the sine of 62. And this is calculator ready, so you can take this information and plug it into your calculator. And eventually you get that x is basically 8. It ends up being 8 and some change. So I have on my calculator 8.008. But again, we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so those extra decimals don't matter. All right, that is law of sines. Let's keep going. All right, now let's do a problem where we have to find the angle. So in these two problems, we're given the side lengths, and we have to use that with the law of sines to find the angle. Now, like we did on the last slide, we are rounding to the nearest tenth. So let's go. All right, first off, we still need our pair of informations. Whatever we do, we need that pair of information. So I have angle S and I have side S. So I'm going to use those two things to start with. So I have sine of 103 over 26 is equal to the sine of x over 6. Now I'm going to cross multiply, same as always, and I have 6 sine of 103 is equal to 26 sine of x. Now remember, we're looking for the angle. We're trying to get this angle, that's the variable, all by itself. So now I'm going to divide 26. Okay, and we have 6 sine of 103 all over 26 is equal to sine of x. Now, there's a few ways you can do this from here. Number one is you can take the inverse, because we're going to need to use inverse trig. You can take the inverse of all of that. But that's a lot to put in the calculator. So I'm going to go ahead and put this right here in the calculator first. So that's going to be 6 times the sine of 103. I'm plugging this in the calculator right now, divided by 26. And I'm just going to use this decimal. So 0.02248. Okay, oops, we don't need the 8. Now, the other reason why I like plugging it in the calculator is I get to check the decimal. See, if this decimal, 2248, there we go. Now, if this decimal is over 1 or under -1, then something went wrong. But as long as this decimal is within -1 and 1, then we're good. Okay, now I'm going to take the inverse of 0.2248. And if ever you do have a number that's greater than 1 or less than -1, you'll get an error symbol. So I just like having the decimal to check. All right, inverse sine of 0.2248. And you get the x is equal to 12.99. But since we're rounding, this ends up being x is approximately 13. And there you have it. Okay, I have run out of room again, so I'll just write it small. All right, now this one, go ahead, try it for yourself. When the video pauses, and then when it plays again, you'll see the answer. And there we go. So as you can see, we still have our pair of information. We have angle A and side A. We are looking for angle B, and we have side B. So there's still that pair, and you need that pair for cross multiplying. And then you cross multiply, get sine of x all by itself. Again, I check the decimal, but if you want to just put that entire giant fraction into the inverse of sine, go for it. But if you don't have one of the super smart calculators, your calculator might not like that. All right, let's talk about law of cosines now. Now, law of sines was a proportion, okay? You needed to have a pair of information, an angle and a side, an angle looking for the other side, or some combination thereof. Law of cosines is when you have two sides and an included angle, so you don't have a pair of information. Or when you have all three sides and you don't have an angle. Now, law of cosines is going to follow these patterns over here. Now, as you look at these patterns, take note that they're actually the same exact equation. It's only the letters that are moving. The setup for each equation is the exact same thing. Here's my little trick if you wish to use it. Whatever letter is up front, that letter is the angle that is in the back. And that just helps me keep which letters go where in order. Okay, because whatever angle is in the behind and whatever side is up front, it is the other two sides that are in the middle. And that just makes things easier. All right, let's do a problem. So here we have two problems. Now notice there is not a pair of information, okay, or a given pair where you have both the angle measure and the side measure. Instead, we have an angle, or a side, an angle, and a side. And we are looking for the third side. So we're going to go ahead and do law of cosines. I'm going to rewrite that up here. So a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared. Hey, that looks familiar. Looks like Pythagorean theorem. Minus 2bc cosine of a. And so now all the information goes in the equation. Since I have my angle back here, this is the side that goes up front. So I know the equation letters don't match the triangle letters, but that's okay. Just keep that in mind. This is the angle. This is the angle we're dealing with. So this is the letter that goes up front. So I have a squared is equal to 11 squared plus 9 squared minus 2 times 11 times 9 times the cosine of 28. And now we're just going to simplify. Now, I like to simplify this in 3 distinct chunks. And this is more helpful in later problems, but we might as well practice now. I like to simplify this piece first, then this piece, then this piece. And I will pretty much go in that order every single time. It just makes things easier, and that way you get to check for calculator errors along the way. Okay, so plugging in the calculator, and this is what we have so far. So you have that 202, so 11 squared plus 9 squared gives you 202. Then you do the 2 times 11 times 9, that gives you negative 198. Now, keep in mind, and here's why I like to break this up the way I do. 198 is being multiplied to cosine. Therefore, according to PEMDAS, you have to combine those two terms first. Okay, you can't do the subtraction until after you combine the negative 198 and the cosine. Once you have that combined, then you can go ahead and do your subtraction. And I have 27.1764. Make sure to stay in the fourth decimal place since we're still doing work. Now that I have one number over here, I'm going to go ahead and just take the square root. Now, for everybody wondering why we just didn't do the square root from the beginning, because calculator tricks are fun, well, and good. The problem with doing everything completely in the calculator is you don't know where you mess up. And there you go. Also, this step right here is an often forgotten step. Okay? A lot of people forget to multiply first, then subtract. And I like doing it like this so that later, when we get to the problems where this step becomes important, we already have the really good habit. Okay, that being said, let's go ahead and get to one of those problems where that step becomes really important. Okay, here we go. So this is my angle, which means this is the side length going up front. Now notice we have all three sides, so we're looking for the angle. So I'm going to start off with 8 squared is equal to 6 squared plus 3 squared minus 2 times 6 times 3 minus cosine of x. Oops, that's a times. This is a minus. All right, here we go. I'm going to simplify my expression in the exact same chunks. So I'm going to do this piece first, then this piece, and then, of course, might as well do the 8 squared. And here we go. Notice it's 45 minus 36 times cosine of x. Okay? Again, the cosine is being multiplied to the 36. So you cannot combine the 45 and the 36 because the 36 is being multiplied. Now, as I go to solve, I need to get x by itself, so I'm going to subtract. I'm going to subtract 45 from both sides. And yes, you can use calculators for a lot of these in-between steps, or you can just know the math at the top of your head. And you're left with this. From here, now we can divide. I'm going to divide a negative 36 and get my cosine all by itself. And we are left with negative 0.5277 is equal to the cosine of x. And just like on my law of sines problems, I like having that decimal there because I get to check. Is it in between negative 1 and 1? Yes, it is. So now I'm going to take the inverse of that number, and that'll be my answer. Negative 0.5277 equals x. And my angle measure is 1 to 1.85, or to round to the nearest tenth, 0.9. And that makes sense, because if you look at the picture, that's an obtuse looking angle. So it's nice that you have an obtuse number. All right, now, back to what I was saying on the last problem. This step right here, going from this step to this step. Remember, do not combine these numbers. You have to keep them separate. 45 cannot be combined with negative 36 cosine x because of the multiplication. It's a very common math error, so just be on the lookout for it. All right, now last but not least, our third type of problem. In these problems, your instructions are going to be something along the lines of solve for the triangle. Now what that means is they want you to solve all the pieces. Find everything. Every side, every angle, find everything. Now typically speaking, you're going to be given all three sides and you're looking for all three angles. So the way we're going to do this, step one, we're going to do law of cosines. Okay? We don't have another option. I don't have a pair. I have to use law of cosines to find an angle. Step two, you're going to use law of sines. If you wish to do 3 rounds of law of cosine, go for it. I find law of sines to be simpler, so I'm going to do that for my second step. And since I have an angle, I'm guaranteed a pair of information. Okay? This might make more sense in a little bit, so let's just finish off our steps. Step number 3, add angles and subtract from 180. Again, if you wish to do another round of law of cosines or sines, go for it. But I'm just going to add up my 2 angles and subtract from 180. Now, if we do this right, then at the end you can check your answer and add up all of your angles, and it should equal 180, or at least 179.99999. All right, let's go ahead and try this problem out. So first off, I got law of cosines. I'm going to look for A for no other reason than it's angle A. So since I'm looking for A, that means 15 goes out front. So I have 15 squared is equal to 13 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 13 times 12 times the cosine of A. And you can use the letters here just to kind of help you keep your work organized. Remember not to combine those terms yet. They are not like terms, so you cannot combine them. All right, instead, I'm going to subtract 313 from both sides. And that is 225 minus 313. And that gives us a negative 88. Divide both sides by negative 312. Whoops. All right, divide both sides by negative 312. I'm waiting on my iPad to stop doing something. There it goes. Okay. Negative 312. And plug that in the calculator. And I have the decimal of 0.2820, which is in between 1 and negative 1, so that I'm guaranteed. And A is going to be, write it up here, A is going to be 73.6203. Remember, go all the way out to the 4th decimal place while we're still working. All right, next up is I'm going to use that information and plug it into law of sines. And again, you can do law of cosines again if you wish. I do not wish. So I'm going to find B for no other reason than it's B. So I have sine of 73.6203 over 15 is equal to sine of B over 12. I'm going to cross multiply. And this is what you get after you cross multiply. And now I'm going to divide 15 away from both sides to get sine of B all by itself. And you end up with B is 39.87. Now, that being said, we're going to do the last step. We're going to add them together and then subtract from 180. Now, before I do that step, it says right here I'm going to round to the nearest degree. So I'm going to do that first, actually, just to make my numbers nice and easy. So A is going to be equal to 74. And over here, B is going to be equal to 40. So taking those numbers, and I have 74 plus 40, and that's going to be 114. And 114 minus 180 means that C is going to be equal to 66. And there are our answers. This is what it means to solve a triangle. You're going to find all three angles. All right, and that is the end of the PowerPoint. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.